नमस्कार मित्रों, हम हमारे चैनल पे आपका हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं और उम्मीद करते हैं कि आप और आपके प्रियजन सुरक्षित और स्वस्थ होंगे। दोस्तों, कोरोना वायरस महामारी के दुष्परिणाम अत्यंत विनाशकारी एवं दुखद रहे हैं, किंतु एक्ट फोर्स के कार्यकर्ता दिन और रात काम कर रहे हैं ताकि हमारे फ्रंटलाइनर्स और वंचित भाई बहनों को हर संभव मदद किया जा सके। रही बात असम और बिहार के बाढ़ से प्रभावित राज्यों में भी हमारे कार्यकर्ता सभी पीड़ित देशवासियों के पुनर्वास के लिए और उन्हें आवश्यक खाद्य आपूर्ति प्रदान करने के लिए एड़ी चोटी कर जोर लगाकर काम कर रहे हैं। हम एक परिवार हैं, भारत के हर कोने में काम करने वाले हजारों लाखों स्वयंसेवकों का, और आपका समर्थन और प्यार ही जो हमें प्रेरित करता है। हम हजारों लोगों की मदद कर चुके हैं, लेकिन अभी भी हजारों और कई लोग बचे हुए हैं। हम आपसे दरखास्त करते हैं कि उनकी सहायता के लिए हमारे ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म पे आके फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंट के तौर पर फूड सप्लाईज के रूप में आपका दान एक जिंदगी बचा सकता है। आपका दान करने के लिए आप हमारी वेबसाइट पे जा सकते हैं। एक बार फिर से हम एक ठोस स्तंभ की तरह हमारे सभी नागरिक का धन्यवाद करते हैं। एंटी कोरोना टास्क फोर्स सदैव ही मनुष्यों, जानवरों के लिए काम करता रहेगा। ये स्टेटमेंट नहीं, वादा है। मानवता हमारा धर्म है, सेवा ही साधना है और हमारी पहचान एंटी कोरोना टास्क फोर्स। हम एक्ट फोर्स हैं, हम काम करके दिखाते हैं। दूसरों की खुशी में सफलता निहित है हमारी। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Namaste, Adab, Sat Sri Akal. Hello everyone. A very warm and cordial, pleasant welcome to all of you. We hope you all are doing fine and are safe at your places. And yes, you're also enjoying our webinars every weekend. Most of you will agree with me if I say that we all wander for distraction. All thanks to our lovely minds. Also wishing you a very happy World Mental Health Day. Reminds me of a beautiful शायरी. किसकी तलाश है हमें, किसकी तलाश है हमें, किसके असर में है, जब से चले हैं घर से मुसलसल सफर में है. We are wanderers, wandering within, but yes, we travel for fulfillment of targets, businesses, markets, demands, and life. As the world came to a virtual standstill and public at large is being confined to their homes to fight the coronavirus pandemic, one sector which was affected the most is tourism. I'm sure my co-host agrees with me on this.
Definitely. So, we know that the world is facing an unprecedented global health, social, and economic emergency with the COVID-19 pandemic. The domino effect of the pandemic has affected almost everyone, be it people or organizations. Also, we have seen that tourism, aviation, and hospitality have been the sectors that were among the first to receive the blow of the pandemic due to the steps like shutdown, lockdown, social distancing. So here today we are, and we today aim to understand what the impact has been in these sectors and what will be their roadmap for revival and reboot.
Today, to ponder more over this topic, post-COVID-19, the new normal for the aviation, hospitality, and tourism sector, we have very renowned, very knowledgeable, and well-versed experts of the field. Welcoming our first panelist for the day, Mr. Edidiah. Welcome everyone. Welcoming our first panelist for the day, Mr. Edidiah Edesugba. He's chairman at Institute of Hospitality, UK, Nigeria branch. He has an experience of more than 40 years in the industry. BDRC Continental, a global organization based in the UK, contracted him in 2014 to audit hotels as one of their global hotel inspectors. He has conducted training programs for many hospitality establishments, including Eco Hotel and Suites and the global Tulip Al Jazeera Resort, Abu Dhabi, UAE. He has also been involved in several pre-opening and management of various hotels in Nigeria. He's a fellow of Institute of Hospitality, UK, Nigerian Hotel and Catering Institute, and the Institute of Tourism Professionals. He also sits on the academic board of the Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry Business Entrepreneurship Skills Training Center. He's a member of the National Mirror Committee on the development of grading and hotel standards for the ECOWAS region. He has a strong flair for developing IT solutions for the hospitality industry and was also involved in the development of bioduct solutions, the most widely used indigenous property management systems in Nigeria. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our second panelist for today is Mr. Bhavishya Azad. He is currently the Assistant Section Officer with Ministry of Civil Aviation, Government of India. He has been assisting in route planning and framing Ministry's SOP for Vande Bharat mission. He has also been mediating and managing temporary international air travel management, restarting commercial passenger services suspended due to COVID-19 pandemic between India and UAE, Qatar, and the United Kingdom. He has also been managing and supervising international air service and traffic rights issues and has coordinated bilateral meetings of India. He has been involved in coordinating various aviation issues, preparing and monitoring budgets for the ministry. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Also welcoming our next panelist, Mr. Sameer Gehlot. He's a qualified company secretary and has worked as associate company secretary at Make My Trip. He's a bright and brilliant achiever and an alumnus of Sri Aurobindo College, Delhi University. He had been an intern with the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. He is also an alumnus of Institute of Company Secretaries of India, where he had been leading various seminars and teams. He has authored various publications for ICSI dealing with developments in labor laws, environment laws, and RBI regulations. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Thank you for having me. Yeah. Thank you.
Our next panelist for today is Ms. Saloni Tyagi. She is currently designated as COM and Legal Manager at Indian Institute of Air Hostess and Hospitality Management. She is an experienced legal advisor with a demonstrated history of working in the legal services industry. She is skilled in constitutional law, contract law, legal writing, corporate law, and intellectual property. She is also a very strong and brilliant media and communication professional. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me.
We would like to thank all our panelists for joining us today and taking out their precious time for us. So before beginning with the webinar and getting a deep insight, Mr. Bhavishya Azad, I would like to understand what changes have you seen in your work field with respect to the coronavirus pandemic?
Okay, thank you for bringing me here. And if I see, if you compare pre-COVID and post-COVID, there is no precedence. We have not seen anything of this vast effect. This is first of us, new of its kind. We were not ready for such things. Even like if you compare it with war, we are prepared for war, but we were not prepared for a virus attack. So when it first attacked, so the first thought that came to the brilliant minds of the country is to stop the international traffic. So it first started in somewhere around January when we started screening the passengers first at the 5 airports. Then we uh, increased it to be, like it became a pan India a concept that we started 100% screening of the passengers. But lately, in March, we completely banned the international travel, and it affected a hell lot of people, students. See, March is the time when most of the people come for holidays to celebrate, especially to India from Dubai, like, because April is very hot in Gulf countries. So most of the people were already here and they have to go back somewhere around in April. They all were stuck. Students were stuck. All the airlines, like, there was a complete ban on international air travel. And similarly, the complete ban was there in domestic also. So it was like a status quo. Whosoever was there, they were stuck at their place. So it affected a lot of businesses and the psyche of a person. So what we did is there was a complete economic, I said, breakdown when it comes to aviation, because it was the first step. The hardest hit sector of this pandemic is aviation. But now we are tackling with it. We are coming back we are coming back on our feet. So as already told, like pre-COVID, we were seeing somewhere around 300 million passengers in domestic sector. Now it has reached to 200 million. So we are slowly moving to our pre-COVID levels. And I think in the few coming months, it will be quite normal. Like international, we have already signed 16 agreements with 16 countries. So there's complete no restrictions when it comes to aviation, international. And then we have Vande Bharat flights. So it has taken a toll on the economy, but we are gaining our foot back. Thank you.
Well, great. Really, we definitely agree with you on this that aviation sector has been affected largely by the COVID-19 pandemic. Coming to you, sir, Mr. Edidayo, uh, how well prepared was the hospitality industry for a crisis like this? Had it done its homework?
Well, taking a cue from my last fellow panelist, it's unprecedented. It's never been, it's not an experience that anybody has had before. But we need to understand, first and foremost, what the hospitality sector is all about. We should define it firstly as a focal environment where humans congregate for the purpose of attaining mental well-being through interaction with other humans and elements which assist in this objective that induces a sense of satisfaction and self-actualization, such as things like food. We come together to share meals and music, arts, adventure, and other forms of leisure. Now, what has happened is that COVID-19 has disrupted this form of social interaction and life. So it's not something that we ever saw what's going to happen. And again, when you look at the virus itself, like other viruses, it attaches itself to the host and seeks to kill it. It can further mutate and become more virulent than the original strain. So in other words, humans are at the core, who are the core of the hospitality sectors, of the hospitality sector, are also carriers of this virus. So basically, it has literally dismantled the whole sector. And we're now beginning to seek for avenues of escape and how to reshape and to rethink the whole sector.
Very true, sir. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected lives of all the people in all the countries. So, continuing with this, Mr. Sameer Gehlot, I would like to ask you, what changes do you see in your field of work in this time of crisis?
So starting with with the month of March, everything came to a standstill. So I personally work as a company secretary, and company secretary are known as a doctor of the company. So in that terms, I can say that tourism sector was on the ventilator, and even it is still on the ventilator, and it is gradually getting back to the normal. And I think things will take time, depending upon the pandemic, how long it will take for the vaccine, or how long the pandemic will last. And there are other relevant factors like what was the existing health when the pandemic hit the tourism sector, and what was the types of incentives or initiatives which were introduced by the government during the times of the pandemic. So these are various factors which contributed to this fact. I already told you, the tourism sector was and is still on the ventilator.
Rightly said, sir. Tourism and hospitality sector, including the aviation sector, have seen a major setback with this coronavirus pandemic. Ma'am,
And
Saloni, ma'am, coming to you. Uh, yes, sir. Samir, sir, you are saying something.
And earlier we used to measure the figures of previous year, but now due to the corona pandemic, we are measuring the figures with the months. For example, right now we are measuring the figures with the month of March or April instead of measuring with the year's figure. So you can see that variable part, like how much hit we are due to this pandemic.
Exactly, sir. Rightly said. Coming to you, Saloni, ma'am. Uh, you being a legal advisor to the Indian Institute of Hospitality and Air Hostess Studies. So, what changes do you see in your work environment due to this pandemic? Some introductory remarks from your side.
Yes, when actually, when this happened, when this news break out that lockdown is going to be happen, the one thing which came to our mind, being associated with the industry where we are providing, training to people who are aspiring to become cabin crew and aviation staff, students started getting panicked that what is going to happen, because we all knew that aviation industry is going to be the hardest hit during the pandemic because all the flight operations got cancelled, staff was getting laid off. So, they were really, worried about their future. But what we thought in that situation is that, you know, this industry, which has, hit the worst, is going to bloom at the highest rate when this is going to be, in a better position. When this situation is going to be in better position, this industry is going to bloom. But for that, we need to train those students or those aspiring students who wants to become cabin crew or aviation staff. They need some different kind of training. So what we did at that time, without getting panicked, we started giving them training according to the situation which they are going to face after the pandemic, as the whole situation is going to be changed, as we are talking about what will be the new normal. So we started thinking about what will be the new normal, and we started giving them training according to that situation. So we didn't panic in that situation, and I think it is going to be bloomed at a highest pace. So thank you.
Rightly said, ma'am, a lot of stress among students. And especially with the restrictions going around about travel and tourism. Azad sir, I would like to ask you that India planned the Vande Bharat mission. So what all did it cover, like the risks that they were exposed to, and what all it took to plan this entire thing?
Okay, so this Vande Bharat mission, it all started with the collaboration of Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Home Affairs, and Ministry of External Affairs. It all started with the China. The first right that it was not under the gamut of Vande Bharat mission. It went to China to like there were stranded students in the Wuhan province only. So the first flight was landed there, and our brave airline, Indian Air India, the staff of Air India took that challenge, and they safely bring those students back to our country. And then on that foundation, this Vande Bharat mission was based, because we were receiving requests from stranded Indians, not only Indians but stranded foreigners who were stuck in India. So then this whole plan was started to bring those stranded Indians back to the country. And it was on the lines that the safety of the staff, the airline staff, was at of highest level. It cannot be compromised, because they have to be on their toes. So we took the social distancing, PPE kits. They were wearing all. They were taking all the social measures, safety measures. Sorry, and then we also, like, you, if you are coming from a foreign country, you have to register with your embassy or the consulate, nearest consulate. Then we'll prepare the list, and then on the basis of the list, the number of passengers, we'll plan the number of flights from that country. So on this, the first phase was set up, and when the first phase was ended, we were still stuck with number of stranded Indians that were in the foreign lands. So that took somewhere around 6 phases, and it is still continuing, the Vande Bharat mission. And we have till date, we have like uh, 1.4 million Indians who were stranded now have been brought back to the country. Apart from Vande Bharat mission, initially it was based on the capacity and the infrastructure of Air India, but later we also took the help of other airlines, others, so that at least they won't suffer, they'll get some business. And these airlines also joined in, the private airlines of the country also joined in to help all those stranded Indians. After this, like, as Vande Bharat was mission was not able to complete to cover the whole world, we started signing our temporary air bubble agreements. And till date, we have signed it with 16 countries. So a person traveling from UK to India don't have to travel through Vande Bharat mission. Any airline of these countries can start their flight and come back to from the respective countries. So now we are on the verge of getting back getting back on our feet when it comes to international travel. Apart from international travel, the similar situation was faced uh, state-wise. People were stuck in Karnataka and they want to go back to Delhi. People were stuck in Kota, Jaipur, and they want to go back to their respective home state. So then this domestic travel was also started, and now we are almost have reached 60% of the capacity. In the next month, we are hoping that this will increase, and by the end of the year, I hope and I wish that it will reach the pre-COVID level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the information. And definitely, Vande Bharat mission has been one of its kind and really helpful in this time of crisis. So, taking the Air India flights and with resuming of a lot of flights, Tyagi ma'am, what changes do you see in the training of the cabin crew because of the safety measures and the precautionary steps?
Basically, if I talk about the training part, they need to be, physically and mentally prepared, because now they are going to be in PPE kits, surgical masks. A lot of, pressure is on them for the safety of the passengers and themselves also. So now, if I talk about their working, I would like to highlight this part, because if not traditionally they are working, the nature of their working has been worked around the safety of passengers, but it has been neglected. It has been neglected since a very long time, because people has a perception of them as air waitresses, or I would say uh, the service part has been recognized, but the safety part, which has been the most important part of their the working, has been neglected. Now they are going to be more valued, their safety part. Now no services are being provided to the passengers, but still they need cabin crew, and they are going to look after the cabin crew for safety. So for that, we need to provide a different kind of training to the students, or to the aspiring candidates, or already people who have been working in this industry so that they can handle the emergency situation or the medical situation in this pandemic, because the training which they got previously, it's not suffice to handle the situation in this pandemic. So what I think, they need to be recognized, they need to be heard, because a lot of cabin crew has raised their voices regarding safety lapses in their flight operations, and they're not being paid. So a lot of things has been done from the side of airline companies, because they are not being provided training. A lot of people has raised their voices. They have been writing letters to the airline authorities that they are not being provided training as per the guidelines issued by the DGCA and the health ministry also. They don't have proper training. They're not being provided proper, safety. For their safety, they're not being provided all the equipments. So if we provide them training, that would be a different thing. But who all are already working in this industry, they need to be, they need to get trained properly. So I think, apart from my institution where I am working, the airline companies have to work on their training part, and their, the kind of um, working they are doing for their staff. They need to look upon it, because it's not suffice. Thank you.
I would like to add what just Saloni said. She rightly said one thing, that when it comes to the cabin crew, uh, why there is because of safety reasons. People only see the glamorous aspect of being a cabin crew, but when you see the training that DGCA conducts, that she has to jump from a certain height and she has to be mentally prepared of an aircraft crash, people don't consider that. They think of just their she or he is there to serve something. And when a cabin crew travels from a direct flight from Newark or New York to Delhi, it takes 11 hours. If you consider yourself wearing a PPE kit for 11 hours, the mental psyche of that person should be respected. The amount of effort that cabin crew has taken, their will, and the respect they deserve is way far more than you think. They have done a tremendous job for the country. Thank you.
Exactly, sir. We definitely agree with you, and we pay our sincere gratitude to such people who take up the responsibility this way. And we have understood that how changes have occurred in the field of training for the cabin crew and the similar things. But coming to Mr. Adedayo, uh, how have the hoteliers managed to strategize to address the new demands for the contactless and social distancing compatible services, to meet the guest needs also and still ensure a steady flow of revenue, sir?
That's usually a very interesting phenomenon in this industry that is people's based, that demands that people interact very closely. Um, First and foremost, let's look at the basic recommendations for safety. The first thing was the lockdown, and we know what happened. We got in the lockdown. We saw losses in jobs, losses in revenue, macro and microeconomic shrinkage. The world economy shrank by 5.2% relatively. We saw businesses collapse. We saw nullification of social interaction, thus negatively impacting on mental well-being. We experienced an increase in social maladies, domestic violence increased, high divorce rates, also adversely impacted negatively on the ability of the family unit to increase productivity, thus increasing microeconomic loss. We experienced unprecedented pressure on the healthcare delivery system, resulting in increase in cost, high mortality rates, and decreasing the GDP of highly infected nations. Then the second thing was this issue of physical distancing as a recommendation to seeing that this issue of COVID-19 is reduced to the barest minimum. So what do we see? We saw the reduction in traffic to local environments offering hospitality products and services. We saw negative impact on social interaction and negation of the desire for humans connect through touch, thus increasing stress levels. Then the third thing was the wearing of masks. Of course, there's what we are seeing is it is perceived as an attack on freedom, on personal freedom in many places across the world. Then secondly, it is perceived as a deterrent to breathing properly and may be injurious to health. Then the third thing is the race to discover vaccine or cure, and this has engendered an atmosphere of distrust globally amongst the nations, with several conspiracy theories and unproven cures recommended, while distorting the facts about the pandemic has become the order of the day. And this is making it more difficult to find a solution as the race for a vaccine becomes more intensified. Now, when you aggregate all these seeming solutions, what you find out is that we still don't have a good understanding of the pandemic itself and what is necessary, the type of lifestyle that we should be living necessary. All these things are palliatives, and I want to confess to you that it still is a total, I mean, I don't want to use the word total, a serious deterrent for the industry to come back to normal. So we're still thinking that if a vaccine is discovered, then the necessary things that we need to do to bring the industry back to 2019 pre-COVID-19 circumstances, then those things will be possible. But as the things right now, all these measures, they are half-hearted measures, and yes, it will basically record, you know, some lives not being lost. But with an industry that needs people to really come together, it needs people to interact, it needs people to, I mean, touch one another. It's not really going to do much. We really do need a vaccine, which I hope that majority of the global population will buy into. We are used to vaccines in Africa. For instance, before you travel out of Nigeria to certain countries, you must have what is called a yellow card. On that yellow card, it is shown that you've already for yellow fever. It shows other areas where you're covered in terms of the vaccination that you have actually taken, and so that allows you to board. So we knew that the issue of, you know, you being tested and being confirmed negative before you board, we knew those things were going to come up. But now we're getting circumstances where we're being shut out of nations, despite the fact that we have less infections in this part of the world. And these are things that we need to really look at. It's really not going to solve the problem. It's a situation where we're finding ourselves that humans are now beginning to use that as an excuse to shut other humans out of their parts of the world. So I want to say that very little changes are going to happen, apart from nations like Nigeria and Africa, where herd immunity has taken place and we can get back to normal, which I think, as a no-brainer, the world should be looking at Africa. The world shouldn't be thinking of shutting out Africa down. Africa has been shut out of Europe, you know, and now there's tit-for-tat diplomacy. We're telling the Europeans they can't come here, and if they don't understand the nature of this pandemic. And I think that is what looking at changes going forward. These are the things that we're dealing with right now. Basically, again, before I end, those measures are not so, I mean, they're not really doing much. Physical distancing, wearing masks, they're not doing a great deal in the places where they've been fully observed. And this is definitely what it's visible to everybody to see. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely, we need viable solutions and better solutions to cope up with the VUCA world, and things will change inevitably. And coming to you, Sameer, sir, The travel companies are adapting to the inevitable uncertainties. Do you see changes in organizational governance of these businesses?
So, as rightly said
Say
by
that
all the
again.
sorry,
Yes, sir.
I
Shubham,
didn't
please
hear
repeat the
clearly.
question.
You are
can
not
you just
properly
repeat the
audible.
question? Can you just repeat the question for Mr. Adios?
Uh, Mr. Adedayo, are you saying something?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sure. The question is to Mr. Samir Gehlot, and the question is that the travel companies are adapting to the inevitable uncertainties. Do you see changes in the organizational governance of these businesses?
See,
Oh,
as you know,
sure. Most definitely. What I'm seeing is in the industry right now is models are there's a remodeling of some aspects of the industry. Remodeling in the sense that for the food aspect of the industry, we're talking of the food and beverage subsection of the industry.
I think there's some network issue. So, Samir sir, would you like to continue?
yeah, so as rightly said by Shubham, that this inevitable situation needs extraordinary solutions. So we cannot solve one problem with the same solution. We
Can you
need
hear me?
Yes, sir.
so
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We will continue with you. Samir sir is speaking something, then we will continue with you. Samir sir, please continue.
like these inevitable situation needs extraordinary solutions. Like earlier, the organization were structured to suit the conditions. Like uh, earlier they were the organization were there for like suiting for 100 million people or something like that. But now, as the tourism sector was hit due to this pandemic, so the organization needs to adjust their organizational values and organizational structures in order to suit the existing situations. Like they were downsizing in various organizations. There was downsizing in Make My Trip also. Earlier, the Make My Trip had marketing team with so many employees. But as the pandemic hit the tourism sector, we need to readjust our marketing team in order to suit the existing situations. So, so this is it. I mean, the this inevitable problem needs some extraordinary solution, and that extraordinary solution is restructuring the organization in order to suit the existing situations.
Exactly, sir. Very rightly said. And coming back to Adedayo, sir, sir, can you please unmute and continue? Mr. Adedayo. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having some connection challenges, but it's been sorted. Yes, let me repeat the question.
Sir, the question was that have you seen any organizational governance changes in the business models?
Yes, there is the business model is changing because of the need to actually drive new businesses and bring back the old ones. And what actually is changing in the business model is that we're redefining the whole sector. The whole tourism sector has been redefined. tourism traditionally used to have six aspects in the sector. It's usually traditionally you'll have the hospitality sector, you have the tour operators, you have the tour agents, the travel agents. You definitely have transport, like we're talking aviation, and of course we have the information and guidance. But now we're finding out that the health, the hygiene, and the health sector, the hygiene and safety has to be one of the subsectors of tourism. In other words, as much as we pay so much attention to other subsectors, we also now have to pay a lot more attention to hygiene and safety. And because of that, the government right now, we're working with the Standards Organization of Nigeria. I sit in what is called the NMC, National Mirror Committee, that works with the Standard Organization of Nigeria for us to develop protocols for the industry. Protocols particularly in the area of ensuring that we make sure that the destinations and the hotels, the restaurants, that they are safe for the customers to come in to have their meals and to utilize the products. This actually is a no-brainer. I know it's something that everybody's looking into, but the issue of compliance in this part of the world and possibly in other parts of the world is something that needs to be fully addressed. There has to be strict compliance, and this is one area that we're working on. We've been able to develop a document that can be actually that puts into consideration global practices, and we're now dealing with issues of training and education, and so definitely businesses that buy into this new normal of making sure that their products are pristine, they're pure relatively, they will have an edge in the industry. But we want to make sure that competition is fair across board. So the government actually is doing a whole lot to ensure that things, this sector of the economy comes back to life.
Very true, sir. The tourism sector has indeed been redefined and a lot of changes are taking place. Azad sir, there's a public question for you from Miss Alia. She wants to ask that due to the COVID pandemic, new safety standards will be imposed, which would be quite costlier than compared to the earlier stages. Do you have any plans to reduce the burden so that they do not burden the pockets of the consumers?
Yes, most definitely. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that was for me. Go ahead.
Okay, so mostly see, airlines are already facing a brunt. So, and when you compare the prices, most of the people right now are complaining that the ticket prices from one destination to another has risen. If you compare the prices in these Vande Bharat tickets, they are high. But people don't compare it with other things because on the return leg of the flight, the plane is empty. So to come to a break-even point, that cost of the ticket has to increase. Similarly, if I give you an example, for example, Go Air. Suppose Go Air is ferrying passengers from New Delhi to Abu Dhabi. It has a fleet of 50 aircrafts. Just to say, they are paying parking charges for all those 50 aircrafts. But when you compare the cost, you compare just a ticket. So they have to fetch amount of money from that single price. So it is not about including measures. It also about being survival of the airlines. So that break even has to be reached. They cannot sustain losses for a longer time. They are already in loss. So these government is like trying to help. We have reduced the parking charges. Even the airport authority has waived off few charges. The ATC charges has come down. So we are taking the toll, but in the end, it's the customer who will face the maximum brunt. We are trying that the price has to be kept to be minimal. The prices are always fixed in 3 buckets, and most of the tickets at the median price are sold very fast. So you have to be on your toes when the ticketing or when you want to book the flight. So it's not just the one. What I want to say is, it is not just the one single ticket. It includes the cost of most of everything. The company has to come to break even. Thank you.
Very true, sir. What we see is the price, and a lot of other factors are considered by the companies. So, sir, do you believe that some companies might exit and the aviation sector might be reduced to only major players in the industry?
Uh, if you compare it with India, we only have four airlines apart from Air India that are like having scheduled international travel. The dynamics have changed, so your business acumen has to be shifted to other directions. Similarly, people are not exiting. The airlines are not thinking of exiting, but they are shifting. Instead of a passenger flight, for example, SpiceJet has started uh, ferrying cargo. They have changed the infrastructure of their aeroplane, and they are just ferrying the cargo to mint the business, to be in the business. Similarly, earlier we have Air India only, who is flying long haul flights. For long hauls are like long distance. We don't have those airplanes with other airlines. But now this pandemic, the shift has started. Vistara has started its journey from London to Delhi and to Mumbai. So we are seeing a shift in the business. People are moving and they are chalking different plans. Similarly, we don't have much traffic in tier two cities apart from the RCS scheme. But these airlines are now traveling from Ahmedabad to Jaipur. If you see Mumbai to Jabalpur flights are there. So these were their 10-year after plan, but they are now implying it so that these can be judged. And to continue with these plans, it comes with a cost, because in most of the return leg they'll be coming empty. So at least they have to consider the cost of ferrying that airplane. So these things are changing, the dynamics are changing, people are changing, their models are changing. People are not flying on the standard routes of from Mumbai to Bangkok. They are like flying from now, what you say, Mumbai to, we have now flight from Ahmedabad to Darbhanga. All these destinations which were not earlier covered, people are like shifting to those locations. We are from passengers, we are now mixing it with passenger and cargo, or we are going with full cargo, scheduled cargo. So it depends on how you see the big picture and how you want to project your company in next 10 years. So that shift has started. If you want to be the business, you have to see the dynamics of your business and you have to move accordingly. It's up to the airlines how they perceive and where they want to go. What is their value? What is their mission? Thank you.
Definitely, sir. Uh, the airlines have to manage, and even uh, they are being helped by the government. And coming to you, Saloni ma'am, we have a question from the audience as well. The question is that how has the aviation law changed uh, due to the pandemic? And I will add my question also to the same. What are the current travel restrictions, and what rights are currently available to travel and tour operators?
So basically, when this lockdown happened, if I talk about aviation law, so when DGCA, or I would say Government of India, put the restriction on the flight operations, so the airline company is not being operated alone. A lot of stakeholders are there, and they have been in contract with a lot of authorities. So when it comes to the the working they have been doing, it affected a lot of people apart from the staff and aviation staff, right? So what, if I talk about from the legal perspective, they had made a plan ahead team. What is plan ahead team is, what they had to do is, they had they had to review their third party contracts which they are having with other stakeholders, like fuel, jet fuel, and other stakeholder which are maintaining their airlines. They had to review their contracts with them, so that they can ease the stress which they were facing due to the reduction in flight operation or the restriction on the flight operations. Then financing arrangement, it was the most important thing because all the operations were cancelled and finance was not there, so they had to suspend all their business. And it triggered a lot of things that they need to arrange the finances, and for that they had to review different contracts with different people to ease that particular suppression. Apart from these aircraft lease agreement, they have been taken the the airline companies, they take the aircrafts on lease, and for 2 to 3 months they are not operating their aircraft, but they had to pay the money to the third party, and how they will manage. So the gist, I would say, they had to look upon the contracts which they have been having to suppress that particular I would say that suppression they were facing that at that time. And government had to support them, and government actually supported the airline companies in various like insolvency and under the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Government eased that particular law and asked the authorities not to file the bankruptcy for next 4 to 6 months. So government supported, third party contracts were reviewed to ease that particular thing. So a lot of things have been done in, from the from the legal point of view. So yeah, they had choices and they did, and government helped them also. So yeah, they are trying to overcome and they will overcome from this particular situation. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much,
right.
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for
Thank
the
you,
deep
ma'am.
insight into the legal perspective. Mr. Gehlot, my next question shall be to you. You being a professional in the management, what challenges do you see the companies facing with respect to the liquidity, stakeholders' interest, and operations?
So, as far as liquidity and stakeholder operations are concerned, due to this pandemic, the company need further liquidity in order to operate in this dynamic environment. And for that liquidity, which needs to pump from the shareholders, the shareholder need to bear that extra amount or extra cost for company to run its operation effectively. And if shareholders cannot agree with that, then company needs to close its operation. Otherwise, I mean, in this dynamic situation, everyone is hurt. Even the companies or even an individual, be it anyone, everyone is in bad condition. So we need to bear that extra burden in order to survive in this extraordinary situation.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. And there's one question from the audience. One more question
Yeah.
for the panelists. That uh, is it advisable or is it safe to like come back to the normal traveling schedules and come back as it is evolving, as it is getting better forward? But
Mhm.
things have changed. But how safe it is for the normal citizens to visit the tourist spots like they were doing before? Is it possible only after getting the vaccine into the market? This question is from MR Meghna.
Okay. So, Ms. Meghana, currently the government is trying to substitute the domestic tourist in place of the international tourist. So they are through their various webinars like Dekho Apna Desh and with other campaigns like Jan Andolan campaign. The government is trying to disseminate information to the general public that there are places in their localities or in their cities that they can visit easily, and whenever they visit, the revenue gets generated from that activity. And through this, the people in there, for example, in Delhi, I may not. There are many places where I don't even know the name of that places. So through this Dekho Apna Desh webinar, I get to know about various places in Delhi, and I can travel there. And within city, it is safe because there is no need to lodge, or there is no need to stay overnight, and that reduces the risk in this pandemic. And going forward, I think even after the vaccine come in the market, everything depend upon the herd immunity and the vaccine, the viability of the vaccine. For example, if everyone gets vaccinated, and even that this coronavirus get erupted, then we need to think about other solutions also. So it's we not only me, but we all cannot predict about what is going to happen in the future. So yeah.
Very true, sir. Very true. And like Miss Meghna, sir, a lot of people, like I fear going out. So with this anxiety and so much uncertainty, a new concept of virtual tourism is coming.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Adedeo, I would like to ask you, do you think that this concept of virtual tourism will have a very negative impact on the hospitality industry?
The concept of you said global tour. I
Virtual
think.
tour. So, virtual tourism,
Oh, virtual
where
tourism. Oh yes, most definitely. Virtual tourism has come to stay. The technology has always been there, but now the pandemic is giving room for advancement in virtual tourism. The 3D type thing that you can actually basically enter into hotels and look at the dimensions, choose a bed. I mean, even to the extent that you can look into every aspect of the hotel. It has already been there, but it's being more used. Of course, you can visit tourism or tourist destinations. You can Africa right now, if you want to the Big Five in South Africa, some of the locations there, you can access them using virtual tourism. So definitely, virtual tourism is one of the ways to go. However, you still can't. The experience of virtual tourism still can't match the experience of visiting locations physically. But definitely, virtual tourism has come to stay.
definitely, sir. Virtual tourism. So, sir, I think it won't be wrong to say that COVID-19 pandemic has led to an increased use of technology. So, Mr. Azad, I would like to ask you, do you see virtual tourism as a threat to the revenue of the airline industry? Because people might not like to travel in this time of pandemic.
Actually, what I believe, it is an individual who has to decide. See, there is no as such regulation or law that is prohibiting you to go outside or to cinema theaters. Everything is open. So it is up to you. It is you who has to decide. If you want to go there and feel it in actually, then uh, it is pretty much okay. It's your anxiety that has to be captured, that has to be restricted. So virtual tourism was there, but you cannot compare it with the actual feel and with the with physically visiting a place. See, if you want to break your monotony by going outside of the house, in virtual tourism, that monotony will be still there. So it is up to the individual who wants to take a feel of. See, for in experiencing a thing, it is fine for once in a while, but as I believe, I don't see it as a threat, especially to airline industry, when most of the visits are for like vacations, students traveling for their studies. So I don't see it as a threat. But yeah, now most of the companies, basically the IT industry, has uh, offshore locations where they have sent their employees to offshore locations. And if they can work from home in these conditions, I think they will definitely look for ways to minimize the cost, and they will look for ways not to send in. Like, it can be easily and cheaply done through virtually. So for them, it might be a threat, but rest assured, I don't see it as a threat.
Definitely, sir. We hope the things which are coming up and evolving like this, they don't turn up to be threats, but help in gaining more and more for any industry or the general public as well. A question to you, Gehlot sir, from the audience, and it is from one of our seniors, Sushmita ma'am, that how Make My Trip is managing with the revenue loss, as many travel agencies have faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So, how Make My Trip is managing it?
So let's take an example here. Supposedly earlier we were getting n numbers of booking, and right now that booking is is reduced with n minus like 100 or 1000. So accordingly we need to adjust our expenditure, and accordingly we need to adjust our advertising expenses. Like in the month of March, April, the tourism, not only tourism but everything was standstill. So there were no advertisement in the media or in any other form of print media or electronic media. So as soon as situation get back to normal, then accordingly we changed our revenue model, suiting the current situation and depending upon the number of booking that we are getting as of now. So through this model, Make My Trip is able to handle its revenue loss.
Uh, that's great, sir. And things as they are changing, adapt. The industry is adapting to the same. Coming to you, Saloni ma'am. Uh, In addition to promoting new public health measures, airlines and hotels need to win back business travelers and their most frequent customers. What suggestions do you have for them?
So basically, first they need to get the confidence of the customers, because now after the this pandemic situation, they have to maintain the hygiene in their premises, and basic, if I would say, they need to gain the confidence of the customer to attract them. And safety measures, if I talk about, they have to follow the guidelines which have been provided by the health ministry or the DGCA or the other authorities which are looking after the uh, these industries. So they have to follow those things and will be done.
Very true, ma'am. Ma'am, we have another question for you from the viewers. It says that why does the DGCA has not compulsory PPE kit regulations for all the frontline staff? Like kits are given only to the cabin crew and the flight crew and not to the ground staff. So why so?
So basically, if you look, if you go through the guidelines of DGCA, Health Ministry, or the government guidelines which have been provided to all the airline companies, they have not mentioned that they don't need to provide the PPE kits or the other safety equipments to the ground staff. They have not mentioned it. So again, I would say the onus is on the airline companies that they have to look after their staff if they want to, or the airport authorities have to look after their staff. They have to provide them all the equipment, safety equipments, so that they can fight. They have been working as medical staff is working, as a healthcare people are working for the people. These people are also working the same way. They are fighting the pandemic, so they also need all the safety equipments. So again, the thing is that it's not about government, that government would decide. It's, they have already issued the guidelines to the all the authorities. It's up to authorities, they have to follow these. Now the responsibility, I would say, is on DGCA or the government. The only responsibility of government is that they have to supervise it. The audit should be done. Otherwise, nothing will be done. As I said, a lot of people have been raising their voices about the safety lapses in their premises, in their flight operations. They have not been provided all the training, all the equipment. Recently, few cabin crews, they have written a letter to their authorities that they have not been provided proper PPE kits. the cabin crew, the senior cabin crew has been, raising their voices. So that means it's not about the staff, it's not about the ground staff. It's about the the airline companies. They are not following the norms properly. So on onus is on them now, because government has done its work. They have been provided them all the support, all the guidelines have been issued. Now they have to follow it. The government has to supervise it, but it's up to them. If they are not following their guidelines, then no one can do anything. It's up to them. So government has to take action against them. DTC has to take action against them. So it's not about that the government has not, been provided any guidelines for the ground staff, or they have been providing the guidelines for a particular number of people. They have issued the guidelines for all the people, for all the workers who have been working in the situation, and they have been providing a lot of support to them financially and other way. So
Rightly said, ma'am. But
I think it's up to, yeah. Yeah, thank
yes,
you.
ma'am. So how do we ensure that it should comply? Saloni, ma'am.
It should, yeah, supervision should be there. Now the onus is on government. They have to look after it. But that, whether the strict action should be taken. Like recently, a pilot raised safety lapses against the Air Asia, and DGC actually took action upon it. So first, people have to come out. Then the other part should be done from the side of DGCA or the government authorities. They have to look after it. They have to set an example. They have to take strict action against them. Then only these people will work on it. Otherwise, these guidelines are of not much use, because they're not following it, and people are risking their life. They are risking the lives of the cabin crew, the people who are traveling in the aircraft, everyone. So a lot of things has been happened. A lot of people has raised their voice, and even government has taken the action against them. But still, that the stringent actions should be taken against them, so that they will follow the guidelines and they don't risk the lives of the people.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Very
very
true,
much
ma'am.
for the insight. And going to back to Adedayo, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
one more question. That
Okay.
many customers, especially in the corporate sector, have now learned that things would work without face-to-face meetings, thanks to the video calls, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and so on. Does this change in the setup have serious uh, consequences for the hotel industry?
Somewhat, it definitely does have. I'll give you an example. We're having our annual lunch sometime in November. We've booked the Radisson Hotel somewhere here in Nigeria, Lagos. But we're only because of the physical distancing uh, uh, protocol. We can only take in about 30 into that hall, 30 of our members. So it has to be some form of hybrid interaction with those that have the intention of coming but can't get a space. So that definitely means that the hotel will be running at a loss. They have the space, but they can't sell the space. But on the other side, the communications sector, the gain from the loss that we're experiencing in the hospitality sector, because then people have to pay for data. They can join up on Zoom. It's hybrid. They can be in the meeting without being in the meeting physically. So definitely, it's a loss for the industry, for the hospitality sector. So that's why, again, we know that we can't really. I mean, it can't take the place of we coming together physically. The way to go is to see how we're going to get back to getting the customers, getting all the stakeholders back into the tourist destinations, back into the hotels, back into entertainment, back into the cinema theaters. And I think that that is what we should really concentrate on ensuring will happen in the nearest future.
Yes, sir, definitely. So it seems that technology has been very helpful in this time of crisis. So Samir sir, my next question shall be to you. Do you think that COVID-19 has acted as a catalyst for digitalization in companies?
Yeah, we can say that because earlier companies used to rent commercial complexes in like supreme locations, and now they are shifting their or allowing their employees to do their work from remote, even from the remote places. For example, let's start with one example. For example, if I'm living in some village in Uttarakhand or some remote village, earlier it might not be possible for me to work from there. But due to this pandemic, or through this digitalization technologies that are available with us, I I I I I find it easy, or you can say that convenient, to work from even remotest locations in our country. So that is due to this digitalization or other techniques or other technologies which are available in India. And now I think all these things reduced the cost of the company, because now the company need not have to rent out locations in supreme places, and even the employees, it is easy for employees also, because employees can work anywhere and at any time. And this is a win-win situation for both employer as well as employees, and even for the company.
True, sir. Work from home culture has
Yeah.
taken pace in this pandemic, and especially to ensure safety of employees, it is quite essential. So, when we talk about safety, Azad sir, do you think that there will be a change in the people who are traveling? Like people who have like quite young kids might not like to travel, or group of old citizens might not like to travel. So, how do you see this change?
It is, we usually travel for our own reasons. So that if that reason is sufficient enough for you to travel, you will travel irrespective of age. So age doesn't matter. And I believe, see, it is an individual choice. If someone wants to travel, that they have a solid reason that, see, there is no option to avoid the travel, then they will travel. It is up to the individual.
So, sir, do you feel that leisure tourism will be on a backseat in this time and even after the unlocking process?
No, 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 no. See, the dynamics have changed. Now, people, the tourist operators and these companies like Make My Trip and these Saffron Stays, these people are coming with different concepts like working from home from hills, and then you can rent a whole villa or a place, flat or something like that for a week, so that you can work from there. So the definition of leisure is changing. People are still traveling, they are working from different location. Now they don't have to take leaves, they can work from anywhere, they are just going there, working from there, and evening they are like having their own time. So the dynamics are changing, but leisure is still there and will be there. It in the end, it's, we all look for a break from our daily monotonous life. So it has to remain there.
I would like to add something in this.
Sure, sir,
Yes, sir.
sure.
So, so earlier, tourism fall into different categories, like there was leisure travel, essential travel, and official travel. But due to this pandemic, the tourism was classified with only one thing, that is essential travel. But as the time passes, the tourism is getting classified into various other categories, but the location is also changing. Like earlier, the hotels or luxury properties were in the prime location, but now it has been shifted to rural areas. So the advantage of this pandemic is that rural area get that infrastructure, which might not be possible due to any other situation, and that is possible due to this pandemic. And one last thing. Earlier, people used to believe in the concept of miles per gallon. Now that has been shifted to smiles per gallon. So all these are the changes, but these will surely everything surely takes some time, and as soon as everything gets back to normal, these concepts will rejuvenate and everything will be normal.
That's true, sir. So, sir, as you very rightly said, that the focus is changing from prime location to other locations too. So, Mr. Adedayo, do you see this as a problem for the hospitality industry, especially for the hotels and the restaurants that were located in the prime areas? Because people would like to avoid rush and hustle bustle right now. So, do you think this will lead to some change?
Oh yes, most definitely. New products will be designed. People will be looking at space. As a matter of fact, space has been centralized. Even in right now, you find out that we're trying to isolate even within the space itself. So the issue now is about space, space, space. We're talking of giving a certain amount of feet in between the guests within the establishment itself. And then we're now talking of moving into larger spaces, taking the destination out of a crowded environment and taking it into a freer space, which means you probably have to move out of the urban areas into the suburban areas. And so the locations, resorts will definitely do better. They will do well in this time. They will also have the space to restrict, to determine the numbers that will come into those spaces. So definitely, Samir has a strong point there. Space will be fully utilized, and you will see a shift from the urban centers into the suburbs as time goes on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
So,
do you
do
think
you
that the
think that the
requirement of
requirement of
quarantine
quarantine
will also act as a hindrance for the growth of hospitality industry?
See, there's a saying in my ethnic group that if you need to be isolated, if you need isolation, then that means that you should be able to handle it. In other words, you don't, I mean, isolation is not a natural phenomenon of human life in itself. Any isolation is for the sick, isolation is for the contagious. Back in the early days when there was no cure for leprosy, if you can accommodate leprosy, then you should be able to accommodate isolation. Nobody, no human being wants to be isolated. The principle of isolation is inhuman in itself. That's why isolation centers are filled in this part of the world. Anybody that continues to expend on isolation is definitely throwing good money away. That's the thinking. Quarantine in itself, it's not an answer. It's just a palliative once again. Quarantine, it's a stopgap measure. Yes, we want to keep sick people away from healthy people, but it's totally dysfunctional to the order of life itself. I don't see it as something that's going to last so long in this pandemic going forward. How are we sure that we're not going to get another pandemic? We're not so sure. How are we sure we're not going to get something more severe? We had Ebola. Ebola is way more severe than this particular pandemic. This particular pandemic, you sneeze and you get over it. Ebola doesn't give anyone a chance at all. It's not something that can be contracted. So how are we sure we're not going to get something going down the road? So quarantining is not the answer to any form of viral pandemic or a major contagious plague that man definitely will probably be experiencing, humans probably experiencing as time goes on. So we have to be up on our game in making sure that we get something that is better than this thing that is called quarantine. And then quarantining, we found out, is very selective. I want to say this again. Europe has a lot more cases than Africa. Then they're asking the African to quarantine for 14 days. It makes no sense, you know. So these things are definitely not going to work. We have to do a rethink, and I hope we do in the very nearest future.
That's very true, sir. So talking about international travel, Mr. Azad, how do you see the opening of international borders in this situation?
See, the borders are actually opened. They are not closed. We are like having Vande Bharat flights. There are operations under air travel agreements. So there was a complete ban on any kind of travel. Like the borders were closed in the month of April for some time, but now this has been partially open, and slowly as we move towards normalcy, this closing of borders is like we are removing it, and as the time passes, we'll see more flights and more incoming and outgoing of passengers, and we will come to a normalcy in next few months. I suppose and I wish. Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah,
Azad sir,
Kritika, could I quickly just say something to that?
yes, yes,
Please,
If
sir.
you remember, changes in the sector has to be location specific. And the first approach to this must be that of sincerity as we map the globe in terms of most safe, safe, and least safe. It's a no-brainer. So some countries are less infected than some, while there's a balance in the countries that are least infected but have weak healthcare delivery systems, and those that are highly infected but have a stronger healthcare delivery system. So yes, the boundary, there's international tourism. The boundaries are not closed, but we have to approach it very critically and looking at all, metrics that will allow everyone access as we look at, those dynamics that affect country by country. It has to be country specific.
rightly said, sir. And coming to you, Gehlot sir, there's a question that which arises that with the landscape which is changing daily, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the travel industry. But assuming we do get back to the new normal, what steps can business leaders take to ensure success in the future? Samir sir.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? There was some technical glitch.
Sure, sir. I'm saying that as the landscape is changing daily, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the travel industry. But as we assume that we will get back to the new normal, and what steps can business leaders take to ensure a successful business in the future? I think Gehlot sir is disconnected. Azad sir, would you take the question?
Actually, business leaders are trying their best. See, if you see Mr. Mukesh Ambani, he has done very wonderfully during these lockdown times. So the diversity of a business is of importance. If you compare it with, see, the IT industries is moving ahead now. We are seeing many new IPOs are coming. People are like listing in share markets. So this whole gamut of business is changing. People are diversifying. We are now we are concentrating on sectors that are very inherent to us, and we are focusing on those. We are trying to focus on our healthcare system, and now there is also a shift in education sector. You see that now from physical classes we are moving towards online classes, but before that, even this pandemic started, we already have edtech companies that are working towards it. For example, Byju's and Unacademy, all over there, and this pandemic has just made their roots more stronger. So it is up to now many pictures has to be taken into collage for considering a business decision, and this pandemic is temporary. It won't be here for life. So things will come to normal. And as you move, the core principle of a business is to make money. But I believe in the pursuit of profit, you must not see it. The pursuit of profit is not just to make money, but it has to be added with some principles. So if you are solid, your infrastructure is very solid, and you have a purpose, for those profits, then you'll do good. Thank you.
Can you
Amisha, there
please
was some
repeat?
technical glitch.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sameer sir, you're back, and uh, great insights by Azad sir. And I would repeat the question for you as well. My question was that as we assume to get back to the new normal, but what steps can business leaders, specifically in this industry, tourism, aviation, and hospitality as such, what steps can business leaders take for a successful future in the light of this pandemic?
See, in the light of this pandemic, what I think is other industries, for example, IT industry or pharma industry, are performing much better than the tourism industry. So we need to think way ahead of them. Like for example, if we start thinking about tourism industry as of now, the IT or pharma are not level playing field with the tourism industry as of now. So in order to compete with them, or in order to stay abreast with them, we need to think far ahead of them. Like 1 year from now, we need to think like that, and in a comprehensive way, because tourism is affected by many factors like environment, and that is one of the main concern of our country, not only our country, but our globe also. And we need to think in a holistic way, considering all these things: environment, sustainability, and footprint. Like many travel industries are using this model, sustainable footprint. What it means is, go somewhere without leaving anything else apart from your footprints. So in that way, I can say that we need to think way ahead of them. Like, we should be 1 year ahead of them in order to compete with them after 1 year.
Definitely, sir. We are seeing that certain sectors and certain industries are able to take the benefit of the screen time of people and people staying at home.
Yeah.
Mr. Adede, I would like to ask you, as a layman, I just know certain measures that people are taking in the hotel industry, like sanitization or maybe contactless deliveries. So, could you just give us a brief of what precautionary measures are you taking?
Well, it's still the same, wash your hands frequently. Now, when we're saying wash your hands frequently, what kind of solvent? Because what we're finding out is that we're having, because of a whole lot of people
People
that are now learning to make
to make
soaps,
the
soap
industry
industry.
so industry.
Looks like there's a feedback. Is that from me? Oh, okay. The soap industry now is booming, and there's a lot of illegal soap making and all those things ongoing. So again, what kind of sanitizers are we talking about? Is it meeting standards? What kind of soaps are we talking about? Are they meeting standards? Of course, we have all those. Then there's some new technology, about having, there's this, I've been seeing something like people wearing some kind of a badge that says it creates a space around the wearer that disinfects. It has some kind of force field, and I don't know if that's working. I don't know how far that's true. But definitely, there's nothing that is really new. I don't know how we're going to start using infrared. There's this idea that's coming. I haven't really seen it anywhere, but it's the idea of disinfecting areas, large areas, using the traditional air freshener dispensers. The air freshener dispensers, they're making capsules whereby they put some kind of disinfectant in the capsule and then put them on the corridors of the hotels, and then intermittently it puffs out that air just to disinfect the air. There's nothing when it comes to viral loads. It has to do with the immune system. You can't
circumvent, the immune system. And I think that's one thing that has helped Africa. Right from when we were little, we had been ingesting what is called quinine because of the mosquito-infested environment. So I had known quinine from when I was a baby. And I think that has basically worked on my genes, and my immune system, is much stronger than others in parts of the world. So the immune system is something that really we need to look into. And of course, all these other issues about cleanliness, there's no way we can circumvent it. Hygiene standards, in all areas, hygiene standards. And seriously, there's nothing new. There's really nothing new. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the insight, sir. Talking about the precautionary steps, Ms. Tyagi, is it necessary for the cabin crew to have a COVID-19 negative test report before they board the flights?
Yes, it is. They have
So is
to.
this?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Please continue.
Yeah, they have to test it before taking their flights, and it is mandatory for them. Recently, a case happened where authorities made a mistake and pilot was COVID positive, and they allowed him to travel. They allowed him to operate the flight. So this kind of glitches cannot be, we cannot right now we cannot, have this kind of glitches, because it is going to pay a huge loss to the lives of the cabin crew, all the passengers, or the co-pilots. So it is mandatory and it should be done properly. Yeah.
So, ma'am, is this only essential for the cabin crew of Vande Bharat mission and international flights, or is this also valid for the domestic flights?
For domestic and international both, as far as I know, it's mandatory for both.
So, ma'am, is this also necessary for the ground staff and all the people who are working at the back end to get a COVID-19
Not
test
COVID
report?
test, not COVID test. I would say not COVID test, but yeah, they have to be careful about their health. But I don't think that it's mandatory for them to be COVID negative every time they come for the working. It's not mandatory for them.
I would like to add upon what just Saloni said. You cannot see airline as a separate industry. If you think, you see it as, do you think every nurse before going to hospital is being tested for COVID? No, she won't be. So it is same, like screening is being done. We measure temperatures regularly, but it is not possible to test everyone daily basis when we are already short of kits. You cannot waste them. You have to utilize them optimally. So these things are not possible. But yeah, we do screen everyone. Temperature screening is there, and there is a self consideration. If you are ill, you stay home. So this policy is mandated. So it's up to. So the individual has to be conscious enough. If he is ill, he should not report to office. But testing of every individual, not even in airline, but in every other industry, is not possible.
Very true, sir. Very true. So we have with us Sachin sir, who is the chief scientist for Act Force. So we would like to welcome sir in the list of panelists.
Sachin sir, are you there?
I think there's some technical glitch. So moving on with the questions, Azad sir, how do you see the post-COVID scenario for aviation industry?
See, new routes are opening up, so airlines are operating new different routes. So I'll see these tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. You will see many more flights. People are airlines, not people. Mostly airlines are testing these routes that they were supposed to test after 10 years. So they are doing it now. Just as earlier I have said, there is flight from now. You can get a flight from Darbhanga. You can get a flight from Raipur. these cities are popping up. But as on the return leg or on the one leg of the journey, the flight is mostly empty. So even people were also not ready, or they're not ready for paying that extra money. But as these routes mature, I believe that we'll see a more comprehensive and pan-India coverage by the airline, and it will do the benefit that we are moving ahead with a faster pace. So new different routes will emerge. New companies are emerging in cargoes. We are seeing a lot of like charter planes. People used to charter a plane. Um, very less number of people used to charter a plane, but in this during this pandemic we have seen a rise in chartering of planes. The number have gone higher, so people are now open to these also. The new suggestions are there, so I'll see new routes will come up, and we'll see a more pan India and pan world coverage. For example, there was no flight from India to Russia. Air India was not used to operate that, but during this pandemic, Air India is operating from India to Russia, and there are many more such examples that new routes are evolving. So you will see a good coverage after post COVID-19.
Okay, that was very insightful. I, on behalf of the entire ACTF team, would like to thank all our panelists for joining us today. It was quite evident that though uncertainties remain at peak and considerable challenges are there, there will be a range of measures that have to be implemented by the countries, organizations, and the people to mitigate the COVID-19's harmful effects and stimulate recovery. Thank you so much for
Thank,
joining us today.
thank you very much to all the viewers, all the panelists, and we request all the viewers for your feedback so that we bring the best to you from the side of Act Force every weekend. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to us on our social media handles. You can also go to our website and donate us through Ek Kiran Asha Ki, an initiative by Act Force for our brothers and sisters in need who are affected by the floods in the areas of Assam and Bihar. And thank you very much. Stay safe, stay happy, hold your sense of gratitude always with pride. Your each effort will definitely count. It all begins with you. It is very beautifully said by an Urdu poet. He says, मैं अकेला ही चला था जाने पे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. Keep smiling. Take care. Until we meet the next time. Namaskar.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.